Wow, BYU had another impressive, gutsy second half performance for the second game in a row for an incredible win over TCU. Our reactions. Hey, I'm Trevor, and this is Saturday's Warrior, the channel where we talk all things BYU athletics, Big 12, conference realignment, and all of that good stuff. And so if you're interested in that, then you're in the right place. So please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us a lot. And if you're not into that stuff, please like the video and subscribe anyway. It is a big boost and we really appreciate it. And now that we've got the obligatory pleading out of the way, let's talk about this win over TCU tonight. What an incredible performance by BYU for the second game in a row, overcoming very difficult situations, albeit different situations, and still finding a way to stay composed, to rally together as a team, to continue to fight and to push, not give up, and find a way to win. And it was, again, a different from Kansas, much more entertaining game to watch than the Kansas game. And it's impressive, even more impressive, that they found different ways to continue to push and fight and win while staying within their game and doing what they do best. And what I love is in both games that they came on even stronger in the second half when things have typically gotten tough. Maybe they get tired legs, whatever, and their shots just aren't falling late, and they're able to, and they see these close games, a few games that we really feel like they should have won, especially earlier on in the Big 12 play, and see those games slip away. So to see them come on stronger as the game goes on and see these other teams struggle to really slow them down, it's just really impressive and does bode well for BYU going forward. We know that they're a live or die by the three, and so you kind of have to take that as it comes. But to see them, even when they struggled in this game in the first half, felt like they couldn't buy a three. TCU was playing incredible defense. They clearly came in with a very focused, very game plan on defense, and they were very dedicated to it. They were really hanging tight onto all the shooters. And yes, they left some lanes open for some easy layups. But as much as BYU continued to push on the interior, TCU stayed tough on the outside, making it really tough for BYU to find those shooters. And, eventually some of those shots stopped falling, and it felt like TCU, on the flip side, they were hitting everything. And I don't believe are known as a 3-point shooting team per se, but man, they looked lights out. They were really giving BYU a taste of their own medicine by hitting three after three and running and really pushing in transition on those fast breaks. So I'm not a person who typically goes out of his way to compliment TCU, but this was a really likable TCU team. I love a team that can play with that much grit and determination on defense and really push on offense. It's really fun. They were athletic guys. They could score. And both teams, I felt like, competed tonight. It was a very physical game, but I don't feel like it got to the point where it was really chippy when we think about games like the Kansas one, for example, where you could tell players were getting into it a little bit. Now, I don't know what was going on the floor, but you didn't see a lot of that spill over. And with physical games like this, usually you see some chippiness just because of the intensity and the competitiveness of it. I think it stayed pretty clean, and both teams were just out there competing. So what did BYU do in the second half to really change things? Was it really just energy? Was there something schematically that they were doing? Because it certainly looked different, but it also felt like TCU was collapsing a lot more on those shooters. You see so much, they would go in, they'd penetrate, and they would dribble, and they would just draw the defense in, kind of lull them in, and they would leave these shooters wide open, particularly in the corners, and they were getting these wide open looks, and that really helped BYU get going, get their confidence, and get back in the flow of things. And so I'm not sure if TCU was trying to do something differently or if BYU was just which I don't know why they would because it was working so well in the first half, or if BYU was giving them some different looks offensively. If you know or have thoughts or ideas, please let me know in the comments. I would be very interested to hear. So, but yeah, I mean, BYU, they just could not buy a 3-pointer. I believe they were like 1 for 13 or something in the first half on threes, and then they ended 9 of 28. So I'm going to do some quick math here. So that means that they were 8 out of 15 in the second half. So that's great second half shooting, above 50% on threes, but that first half was abysmal. And it seemed like TCU, it was the reverse of what BYU did to Kansas, where Kansas only had 3 and BYU had 13 threes. Fortunately, it didn't continue to play out that way. But to have such a huge turn in overall in lead, being down 17 and flipping the script on that was just outstanding. It definitely it was great to see them do the opposite of what happened against Texas Tech. We saw then the same thing that I think BYU did to TCU tonight, was make them feel that pressure as they start, get a long sustained run going. And then that really put pressure on as TCU saw that lead go down to single digits. And all of a sudden, okay, now BYU's back in this game. And I kept thinking, okay, sure, you're getting in, but then TCU's going to, flip that switch. They're going to get back into it and kind of continue to extend the lead at least long enough to make it difficult for BYU to catch up. But from the moment that BYU tied the game again, they had such momentum at that point. It really felt like they were not going to give up that momentum again, that even if somehow TCU pulled it out, it was going to be a dogfight to the end. But BYU just kept rolling and rolling, and that was what was most incredible, and just seeing TCU kind of tailspin, and they had difficulty. Gotta love what Richie Saunders did out there. Love that hustle, love the tenacity, and love it when you see that even when it doesn't always show up in the stats, that he's out there being that key contributor and really getting it done. So I don't know what else to say about that. Just that super impressed. They definitely have a tough game ahead of them this week against Iowa State, and I'm not the first to say this. In some ways, this might end up being even tougher game than winning at Kansas, just because Iowa State's deeper. They're really rolling right now, and they're also looking for revenge, having really gotten boat raced out while they were in Provo, and I'm sure they think that they would like to do the same to BYU on the return game as they go to play in at Iowa State this time. But if these last two games are any indication as to how BYU will play when they show up at Iowa State, I still like their chances. I still think it's going to be a great game, and certainly BYU can pull it out, but it is going to be a tough one. And now a few weeks ago, I did another video on a way too early look at the Big 12 tournament and potential seedings and scenarios that we could see on how it would play out. And now looking at it just on the seedings on tonight, now we're not way too early, but it could certainly change a ton because you have so many teams tied there in the middle or very close. And so it's depending on how these last few games or a couple games go in conference, we definitely see a lot of movement there. BYU has room to drop, I think, a fair amount in the tournament. But if we look at this, a 4 seed in the first year in the Big 12 is just incredible if they're able to pull that off somehow and get you 2 byes. Of course, what would that get you if the seeding from today held? They would get most likely Kansas, a rematch with Kansas, and what would be probably another essentially home game for Kansas. That would be tough to beat them twice against the same team so close together. That Kansas will come out playing tough after how the last game ended. And then if BYU were to be able to get past Kansas in this scenario, they'd again most likely be looking at a rematch with Houston, which BYU played Houston really well, really had a chance to actually win that game. And so you think, okay, neutral territory, maybe BYU can do it again the way they've been playing, but it's not like Houston's been playing bad either. Yeah, they looks like they had a close one with OU tonight, but that's just the Big 12, and so that would be their path to winning some games. But I still think going in there and having another match against some of these top Big 12 teams, as long as they hang in there and they're good games, I think only boost their resume, help them better position, hopefully for a 5 seed, which would, of course, as many think, would get them first 2 rounds in Salt Lake City, which would essentially be home games, which would definitely increase the odds of BYU being able to get to another Sweet 16, which would be fantastic. What a great year. What great game, great win tonight. Please let me know your favorite part of the game, what you think BYU did differently in the second half to pull off the win. I want to hear that. Again, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, go Cougs.